I know people understand this. I just want to say, for the supporters of Donald Trump that are watching this show,
I have a question for you about
and you're
that.
out there, any member of Congress, from Ted Cruz to Bernie Sanders, they got briefed and took 3 documents. Not all of these boxes, not thousands, but took 3 classified documents, would get a call the next day from the FBI, or they'd show up in their offices. It would be immediate. I was talking to a CIA analyst over the weekend who said if he mishandled 1 document, even though he was a career CIA guy, he would lose his job that day. Might not get arrested for 1, but they would be there knocking on his door the next day. They give Trump years, year and a half, and he keeps ignoring them. And then, and now he keeps going on TV. You know what? Why don't we bring in Barbara McQuade? She's, of course, former U.S. attorney. Barbara, we've sort of summarized Donald Trump's interview with Bret Baier last night as incoherent, incriminating, and idiotic on so many levels. Talk about how he keeps putting himself one step closer to jail every time he does one of these rambling interviews.
Yeah, you know, any lawyer would tell him to just stop talking about this matter, but he can't help himself. I think he thinks that by getting out there, he can just explain it all away. But this interview did a very good job of pinning him down, because I think one of the things he admitted to is that he kept them even after he knew he needed to return them, because he needed time to review them. When he was asked about why he moved them around, he essentially admitted to obstruction of justice and said the reason he did it was that he needed to go through them. I mean, imagine if you got, tax day comes and goes, and you said you didn't file your taxes because you're very busy. It just doesn't fly under the law. These are our nation's most sensitive secrets. It's like holding, nuclear material. Every second you have it, you're exposing people to risk. There is a risk that these could end up in the wrong hands. And so every day that goes by puts our nation at risk. So I think that this evidence, this recording, is very likely to be played before a jury at trial.
Yeah, so Barbara, let's just press a little further there. What stood out to you last night in terms of what could be, frankly, admissible at a trial? It almost feels like Trump borderline confessing to what he's being charged with. Like, how devastating is this potentially for his defense?
I think it's very powerful evidence, because I think the hardest thing to prove in most cases, but especially a case like this, is willfulness. For most crimes, ignorance of the law is no defense. But for certain crimes, including mishandling classified information, there's an additional level of willfulness, that is proving that what you did was illegal and that you knew it was illegal. And so that little clip where Donald Trump explains about his understanding of he can no longer declassify documents after he leaves the White House says that he understands what it means to handle classified documents. He knows that these are regulated by certain laws. And so for him to say at trial, if there were to be some defense, that the government has failed to prove the requisite intent, they'll just play this tape. And I think a jury will find beyond a reasonable doubt that he absolutely knew what he was doing was illegal.
So, and Gene, the government has Trump coming and going on this issue as far as intent goes and as far as knowledge of the law, because, yes, they have him on tape saying, as a former president, I can't declassify this material. I can't declassify this document. It's a shame, right? So they've got him as an ex-president understanding that. As president, they have testimony of Donald Trump understanding the declassification process, and have somebody that had briefed him, and they have more evidence from more staff members that Donald Trump knew exactly what was required to declassify a document. And unlike what he said on Sean Hannity and what he said on other shows, he can't just wish it in his mind and make it go away, the classification document.
Yeah, he knew that. I mean, it seems to me that hell for a defense lawyer is a place where you have Donald Trump as a client for all eternity, right? Because he goes on television with Bret Baier and repeatedly incriminates himself on count after count after count. And so my question to Barbara McQuade is, what do you do? Say you're one of his defense lawyers, and you've watched that interview, which you surely advised him not to give, and he gave it anyhow. And you listen to what he said and how he basically confessed to a series of crimes. What do you do? How do you try to repair that damage? And is it time to talk to your client about some sort of plea arrangement?
Well, number one, you consider resigning, I suppose, because you have a client who won't listen to you, which is every lawyer's nightmare. I think maybe you dissect it for him and explain to him in very gory detail exactly how harmful that was. These are the elements of the offense. This is what the government will have to prove at trial. When you say these things, this is evidence that they will play in court. Perhaps that is one way. You know, a guilty plea, Eugene, is so interesting here. I think any normal defendant, any normal lawyer would absolutely be talking about a plea. But I can't imagine the government is going to agree to the kind of conditions that Donald Trump would want in exchange. They're going to want prison time because anybody else would get prison time. Or they're going to want, which the Justice Department permits, an agreement not to seek higher office. He's just not going to agree to those kinds of things. But maybe as we get closer to the date and he realizes that serious prison time is at stake, those things may look a little more attractive than they do now.